Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Talk It Up, Laugh It Out, hosted by me, Chelsea Barbagallo. And today we're going to focus on our favourite topic, which is music.
And today we are going to discuss a topic that isn't often discussed when it comes to music. I'm sure we can all say that when we ask people what we think music is, they say it's learning an instrument. But there's not heaps of research into a certain topic that we are going to discuss today, which is how learning music in adolescence can benefit you as an adult in the way that we speak, act, present ourselves, collaborate with others. This is something that people don't often understand music has a hand in, and that is why today we're going to be focusing on these few topics here. Let's start with our main topic, which is why is learning music in adolescence important, and how can it affect and enhance cognitive thinking and well-being? Now, that's a lot of words, so let's try and strip that down to just one main theme, which is why is learning music so important when you're young? Why? What does it do for you? How can it benefit you as a person in your individuality? Well, let's start with some scholarly resources. We're going to begin with a dissertation written by Goopy and MacArthur, and it's a literature review, which provides insight into evidence to support that music can support adolescents' emotional well-being. So, for example, when it comes to regulating emotions or calming down your nervous system, a lot of that stems from music education. If you think about it, being on stage and performing in front of a large audience, that's terrifying. It's nerve-wracking, and you feel it through your entire body. However, evidence supports that consistently doing that activity actually helps you regulate your nervous system. It helps to calm you down. It establishes a procedure. It establishes the idea of sustainability, knowing that you're constantly doing that thing and you know how to calm yourself down. You're training your brain, which then helps you in high pressure situations the older you get. For example, job interviews, professional gigs, all of that stems from how you act as a child, how you learn how to act. And the way that we learn how to do that is through music learning. We have many other resources to back that up. However, I think one of the main topics, the main important ideas that we should focus on is the actual physical human brain. So it's not just a matter of how we do things, it's a matter of how we train our brain to do things. Studies show that people who are good at music are generally good at maths, because music is essentially a different language. When you think about it, you are reading things off of a page, things that you don't often know. For example, reading sheet music. If you gave a person sheet music and they had never done music a day in their life, it would be very confusing for them. I think we can all attest to that. So the idea that it's the actual brain learning how to do things, it's really quite incredible to talk about. So I'm just going to pull up my notes here and we can discuss that. So let's talk about the cognitive research. So we want to link back to that idea of how can it enhance cognitive thinking and well-being. Cognitive being just how the brain works. So here's an example of that. If I were to go to my ensemble every week, I had an ensemble every week for an hour. I went to that ensemble, I collaborated, I asked questions, I contributed, I worked in a team environment, and then I left. Then say in a few years' time, I had a job interview. I am able to sit down and comfortably express what I plan on doing, what my role is, who I am, what kind of individual I am, what my strengths and weaknesses are, all because I worked in that team environment at such a young age. That is the benefit of music learning, especially in adolescence. Now, the next portion of our podcast is an interview. We have an interview with the incredible G-Sub Lee. He has been a friend. He has been my accompanist for a very long time. over my time here. And I just wanted to speak to him because he is a clear-cut example of what an individual can look like from learning music in adolescence.
I'm here with Gisib. And Gisib, what age did you start getting into learning music?
Probably started when I was around grade 6, 7.
Right, and what instruments were you drawn to?
I was singing in choir at that time.
Mhm.
Also, I think first instrument apart from voice is probably piano.
Voice and piano.
Yeah.
So when it comes to voice and piano, you're going to have to learn how to read sheet music, and you're going to have to learn how to position your hands on the piano.
Yeah.
So you learned all that at quite an early age.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so like age, what would you say, 12, 13?
Yeah, 12, 11, around there.
Mm-hmm. Now, Gisib, I have to ask, have you ever performed in large or small ensembles that require teamwork and collaboration? And if so, how did you go?
Yeah, I've performed in a lot of those kind of groups. I think at first it was quite nerve-wracking, but as you get used to it, it becomes quite fun working with other musicians and making such beautiful works of music come alive. I think it's a really fun experience.
So you have to speak with your fellow neighbour and you have to discuss different ways that you can change the music or how you can collaborate to make things sound different or better. So you've had to speak with people since you were 11, people you don't know in ensembles that you've never done before.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a big learning experience getting in there and just talking to strangers. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the topic of collaboration, would you say that taking part in these ensembles improved your social abilities, such as the way you present yourself, speak and act?
Yeah, I definitely would. I think definitely teaches you how to communicate and work in a team, especially how to follow instructions or kind of musically, like what direction everyone's going in.
Because from some research that I've actually conducted, it has stated that learning music in your adolescence actually improves the way you act socially as an adult. So the way you act as an 11-year-old, it shapes the way that you act as a, how old are you now, Gisif, if you know what I'm asking?
I am 20.
20-year-old. So all that time you've developed these skills. And so with the final question, with the fact that I've given you and the questions I've given you, do you think that if you had started learning music at your age right now, you'd be a different person?
Ooh, I think I would definitely say that I would be a different person. Yeah.
So you think that because you started at such an early age, having to collaborate and talk and meet with people, that it just became ingrained into your everyday routine. Get up, go to the ensemble, speak with people, make these connections, make friends. Would you say that that's yours?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Gisib.
Now going to move on to our analysis portion of the podcast. Now, this is the fun part because what we're going to do here is we're going to dissect the information that we have gotten from not only our scholarly resources, but also from our lived-in experience with our wonderful Gisib. So Gisib has taken the time to come in and he has been able to express what his life has been like through collaboration, and through his lived experience, he has been able to say with full certainty that he does not believe he would be the well-rounded individual that he is today without music learning. So this leads us to our next point. How can we implement more music learning for adolescent children, for adolescent students? Because what we are doing right now is we don't have many music programs. And what we need to do is we need to get those music programs and we need to create them and we need to give them out. Because what we're doing is limiting children's abilities at such a young age. It doesn't take much for these kids to establish good practices. For example, I can say, based on my own experiences, that when I started doing music, I was 9 years old. I started as a vocalist and I continued on as a vocalist. But at that time, I learned how to express myself. I learned how to collaborate. I learned how to speak. I learned how to have proper diction. It all has incredibly benefiting factors. It doesn't matter what instrument it is, there is some form of benefit that you will get. If you're a pianist, you get to learn mobility when it comes to your fingers and your arms and how to sit and your posture. Same with the vocalist. You learn how to breathe properly. You learn how to stand up straight. You learn how to present yourself. There are so many factors that we can take into account when it comes to music learning. So how can we, as a society now, start to implement these activities? And I think I've come up with a solution. Now, in this dissertation that I found, I extracted elements from the dissertation about learning music education in adolescence and how it can benefit a young student in music and mathematics, music and reading, and music and overall achievement. So what that means is we can implement music through various types of formats. For example, listen to this snippet of a times table song that I found on the internet.
I am the multiplication table. Remember me because you're able. We'll learn to multiply 1 through 10 up to 100 because you can.
Super catchy, super easy to understand. It gets stuck in your head, and it's a great way for children to learn through music. Now, however, learning through music is a great thing, but if they don't have a foundation of what learning through music is, what music is, that's where they're going to struggle. That's why teaching music at an early age is so important when it comes to pattern recognition, when it comes to learning melodies, harmonies, very, very basic things, if you will. That is what's so important for children to understand. It enhances their memory. It enhances the way they see things, the way they hear things, the way they adapt. That is why it's so, I cannot stress enough how important it is. And that is why it is our job as a society to make sure that we are implementing music learning any way we can, so that we can create a better outcome for our youth. And that is our episode for Talk It Up, Laugh It Out, discussing the benefits of music education on adolescents when it comes to cognitive thinking. I hope you learnt a lot. I definitely learnt a lot. Through my research, I learnt that there's not enough research on this topic. There needs to be more done to it, because when you think about it, now you can go out and you can meet people that you know have definitely done music as a child, because you can see it reflect in their behavior as an adult. You can see it, and that's what's incredible, is that it's not just something that you guess, you can see it. There is a visible, audible, psychological difference. And I hope that you can all go out and you can go, you know what? Yes. More music for our children, more music for our youth. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day/night. See you next time on Talk It Up, Laugh It Out.